It happens quietly. There is no cannon salute, no church bells, no announcement to the nation. Behind the closed doors of a royal residence, doctors confirm that the British monarch has died. They record the exact time because from this moment onwards, every minute matters. Outside, life continues as normal. Tourists walk past Buckingham Palace, commuters board trains, children arrive at school. Almost nobody knows that the country has just entered one of the most carefully planned transitions in British history. And yet, at that exact moment, everything has already changed. Britain has a new monarch. Not in an hour, not after Parliament meets, not after a coronation, immediately. The instant one sovereign dies, the heir automatically becomes king. That is why an old proclamation has echoed through British history for centuries. The king is dead. Long live the king. It is not simply ceremonial. It exists to answer one question that once plunged kingdoms into chaos. Who is in charge now? Centuries ago, uncertainty over that answer could lead to civil war, foreign invasion, or rival claims to the throne. Britain learned that even a brief gap in royal authority could become dangerous, so the law evolved to ensure there would never be an empty throne. Before the country even knows one monarch has died, another already reigns. It is one of the strangest moments in the British Constitution. A family has just lost a parent. A nation has just lost its sovereign. And at exactly the same moment, someone grieving that loss inherits the greatest constitutional office in the country. When Queen Elizabeth II died in September 2022, the world watched this transition unfold in real time. But these traditions were not created for Elizabeth. They have developed over centuries and are intended to happen whenever a British monarch dies, whether king or queen. This is royal history with Ruth. Come with me through the days that follow the death of a British monarch, from the first private confirmation to the final farewell, and discover why almost nothing that happens is left to chance. The first few minutes. Although Britain already has a new king, almost nobody knows it. The first priority is not making a public announcement. It is making the right private ones. The monarch's private secretary is informed. The Prime Minister must hear before the public. Senior members of the royal household begin contacting those whose responsibilities will shape the hours ahead. In 2022, the coded phrase "London Bridge is down" triggered the plan prepared for Queen Elizabeth II's death. That phrase became widely known afterwards, but it was never designed for public drama. Its purpose was practical, a short, unmistakable signal that told government departments, military officials, broadcasters, and the royal household that the transition had begun. If a future monarch dies, the operation will not necessarily carry the same codename. Different contingency plans exist depending on the monarch and the circumstances. The important point is not the name of the plan, but what it sets into motion. Within minutes, secure communications spread across government. The Cabinet Office activates long-prepared procedures. Officials begin notifying governments across the Commonwealth. Foreign heads of state receive formal messages. The armed forces prepare for ceremonial duties that may still be days away. Meanwhile, television newsrooms make a remarkable transformation. Presenters change into dark clothing. Prepared broadcasts are checked. Programs that have been running for years are quietly interrupted. But there is still no public announcement. Why wait? Because history has taught Britain that accuracy and coordination matter more than speed. The Prime Minister must be informed before the world hears the news. The royal family must be notified. Governments that share the British monarch as head of state deserve official communication before discovering it through television or social media. Even in the age of instant communication, the order of events still matters. The monarchy has spent centuries refining this sequence, not because tradition demands it, because stability does. And then, when everyone who must know has been told, Britain reaches the moment the entire country has been waiting for. The announcement is finally made. The announcement. For a few brief moments, two very different realities exist. Inside government, the transition is already well underway. Outside, millions of people continue with their day, completely unaware that Britain has a new monarch. Then everything changes. An official notice is placed on the gates of Buckingham Palace. The royal family's website is updated. The announcement is released to the media. Television programs stop. Radio broadcasts are interrupted. News presenters deliver the words the country has been expecting, but never quite prepares for. The monarch is dead. For many people, this is the moment history begins. In reality, history has already been unfolding for quite some time. The public is only now catching up. That delay is deliberate, not because anyone is hiding the truth, but because every step before the announcement has one purpose: to ensure that when the country learns its sovereign has died, there is no uncertainty about what happens next. That certainty is one of the monarchy's greatest strengths. The nation reacts. The announcement spreads across Britain within minutes. Flags begin to fly at half-mast. Church bells ring in many communities. Crowds gather outside Buckingham Palace almost immediately. Some arrive carrying flowers. Others simply stand in silence. Many have no personal connection to the royal family, yet they still feel they are witnessing the end of an era. That reaction is about more than one individual. For many Britons, the monarch represents continuity. Governments change, prime ministers come and go, political parties rise and fall. The sovereign often remains a constant presence for decades. When that figure disappears, people are reminded not only of one person's death, but of the passing of an entire chapter of national life. That was especially evident in 2022. For millions of people, Queen Elizabeth II had been the only monarch they had ever known. Her death therefore felt unlike any previous royal transition in living memory. But every future succession will carry its own emotional weight. Whether the reign lasted 70 years or 7, the passing of a sovereign always marks the end of something that cannot be repeated. The new king has already begun. While the public mourns, the new monarch has almost no time to grieve in private. Constitutional duties begin immediately. One of the first responsibilities is to meet the Prime Minister. There are audiences with senior officials. Important state documents require attention. Messages arrive from around the world. Foreign leaders offer condolences. Heads of state recognize the new sovereign. The pace is relentless. It creates one of the monarchy's most human contradictions. A son may have just lost his father, or a daughter her mother. Yet almost instantly, that grieving child must begin acting as head of state. There is no period during which the crown waits for emotion to settle. The institution moves because the country must continue moving. That principle has guided the British monarchy for centuries. It is why the crown is often described as an institution rather than simply a family. Families pause. Constitutions cannot. Why there can never be an empty throne. This immediate transfer of power did not happen by accident. It was shaped by painful experience. Throughout medieval England, disputed successions repeatedly led to instability. Following the death of Edward the Confessor in 1066, several men claimed the English throne, leading to the Norman conquest. Centuries later, rival branches of the royal family fought the Wars of the Roses over competing claims to the crown. Even after the monarchy became more constitutionally defined, uncertainty remained dangerous. The execution of Charles I in 1649 abolished the monarchy altogether for a time. Then the Glorious Revolution permanently reshaped the relationship between crown and parliament. Each crisis reinforced the same lesson: power becomes vulnerable when succession is unclear. The modern system exists to ensure that uncertainty never has the opportunity to grow. That is why no election is held, no vote takes place, no official creates the new monarch. The law simply recognizes what has already happened. The previous reign ends, the next one begins, without interruption. And now that Britain has a king, another centuries-old ceremony must make that invisible constitutional change visible to the nation. The place where that happens is not Buckingham Palace, it is St. James's Palace. Day 1. The morning after the monarch's death begins with an unusual reality. Britain has had a new king since the very first moment of the previous sovereign death. Now the country is about to see that change made public. The location is St. James's Palace. It is one of the oldest royal palaces in London, and despite Buckingham Palace being the monarch's official residence, it is here that one of the monarchy's oldest constitutional ceremonies still takes place. The gathering is called the Accession Council. For most of the year, few people think about it, but whenever a British monarch dies, it becomes one of the most important meetings in the country. Senior members of the Privy Council arrive: government ministers, former prime ministers, the Lord Mayor of London, senior judges, church leaders, other constitutional office holders. They are not meeting to choose the new king. That decision has already been made automatically by law. Instead, they meet to recognize publicly what has already happened. That distinction matters. The ceremony creates no king, it acknowledges one, making the invisible visible. The first part of the meeting takes place without the new monarch present. Officials formally announce that the crown has passed to the rightful heir. Historical documents are read aloud. The official proclamation of accession is approved. Only then does the king enter. For the first time since inheriting the throne, he addresses the council. He makes a declaration to uphold the constitutional principles expected of the sovereign and signs important documents confirming the beginning of his reign. The ceremony is formal, measured, almost understated, yet every word reflects centuries of constitutional development. This is no longer the absolute monarchy of the Middle Ages. The sovereign reigns within a constitutional framework, and that framework values continuity above all else. The Accession Council demonstrates that continuity. There is no debate, no uncertainty, no competing claim, only the peaceful recognition that one reign has ended and another has already begun. The proclamation reaches the nation. The ceremony inside St. James's Palace is only the beginning. Outside, another tradition is waiting. The Garter King of Arms steps onto the Friary Court balcony. Below him, a crowd gathers. The official proclamation is read aloud. For the first time, many people hear the words proclaiming the new monarch. Then something curious happens. Trumpets sound. The crowd responds with an ancient cry: "God save the King." For the first time in decades, those words are no longer directed towards a queen. It is a small change, just one word. Yet it reminds everyone listening that an entire reign has come to an end. The proclamation does not stop there. Copies travel across the United Kingdom. They are read publicly in cities, towns, and capitals, in Edinburgh, in Cardiff, in Belfast, and elsewhere throughout the Commonwealth realms. The message is always the same: the crown has passed, the monarchy continues. Why are the flags raised again? One of the most confusing moments for many people comes shortly after the proclamation. The flags that had been lowered to half-mast are briefly raised back to the top of their flagpoles. Then, only a short time later, they are lowered once more. It can seem contradictory. Surely the country is still mourning, so why raise them at all? The answer lies in what the flags represent. When the monarch dies, the nation mourns. But after the new sovereign is formally proclaimed, the full raised flag acknowledges that Britain once again has a reigning monarch. The crown has not disappeared, it has continued without interruption. Only after recognizing that continuity do the flags return to half-mast for the remainder of the official mourning period. It is a brief gesture. Many people barely notice it, yet it captures the entire philosophy behind the British monarchy. The country honors the monarch who has died, while simultaneously affirming the monarch who now reigns. Grief and continuity exist together. The King's first journey. As constitutional ceremonies conclude, another responsibility begins. The new king starts traveling across the United Kingdom. This is sometimes called the accession tour. He visits the devolved nations of the United Kingdom, receiving condolences, attending services of remembrance, and meeting political leaders. When King Charles III undertook these visits in 2022, they reflected traditions that had developed over generations. The purpose was not simply ceremonial, it was constitutional. The monarch serves the entire United Kingdom, England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. The journey demonstrates that the crown belongs to all four nations, even in a moment of mourning. Meanwhile, preparations continue elsewhere, because while the country watches proclamations and ceremonies, another journey is quietly being organized. The monarch's final journey home. The monarch's final journey. While Britain watches the new king begin his reign, another journey is unfolding with equal care. The journey of the monarch who has just died. Unlike the accession, which happens instantly, the monarch's final journey takes time. Every movement of the coffin is planned with extraordinary precision, not simply for security, not simply for ceremony, but because every stop tells part of the story of the monarch's life. The exact route depends on where the sovereign dies. When Queen Elizabeth II died at Balmoral Castle in Scotland, her journey began hundreds of miles from London. Her coffin travelled first to the Palace of Holyrood House in Edinburgh, the monarch's official residence in Scotland. From there, it was taken in solemn procession to St. Giles Cathedral. Thousands lined the streets. Some applauded softly, others stood in complete silence. Many simply bowed their heads as the coffin passed. The following day, members of the royal family held a vigil around the coffin, standing motionless in quiet tribute. It was a deeply personal moment, yet it was also unmistakably public. For Scotland, this was an opportunity to say goodbye before the monarch returned to London. If a future sovereign were to die elsewhere, the route would naturally be different. The destination, however, would remain the same: London, because that is where the nation comes together. Why does the coffin stop along the way? At first glance, the journey may seem unusually slow. Why not simply transport the coffin directly to the funeral? The answer is that this journey is not only about moving a coffin, it is about allowing an entire nation to take part in the farewell. Every procession creates an opportunity for people to gather, to watch, to reflect, to participate in a moment that will soon become history. This tradition has evolved over centuries. Long before television or the internet, public processions allowed people to witness royal events with their own eyes. Today, millions watch from home, yet the physical journey still matters. It transforms private grief into shared national remembrance. Every stop reminds people that this is not merely the death of an individual, it is the closing chapter of a reign. Westminster Hall. Eventually, the coffin reaches one of the oldest surviving buildings in the Palace of Westminster, Westminster Hall. Few places carry greater historical weight. For nearly 1,000 years, this vast medieval hall has witnessed coronation banquets, royal trials, great state occasions, and moments that changed the course of British history. Now it becomes the setting for another tradition, the lying in state. The coffin is placed upon a raised platform known as a catafalque. The imperial state crown, the orb, and the sovereign's scepter are placed upon it. Soldiers from units closely associated with the monarch stand guard around the clock. They do not move, they do not speak. Their silent presence symbolizes respect, duty, and continuity. Then the doors open, and the public begins to enter. The longest queue in Britain. Within hours, an extraordinary line begins forming through the streets of London. It grows and grows, eventually stretching for miles along the banks of the River Thames. Some people wait 6 hours, others wait 12. At its longest, many waited well over 20 hours, simply for a few quiet seconds inside Westminster Hall. Why? They receive no audience, no conversation, no photograph, only a brief moment to walk past the coffin. Yet for many, that moment is deeply important. Some bow, some curtsy, some quietly wipe away tears. Others simply pause for a heartbeat before continuing. It is one of the few moments in the entire process where the carefully organized machinery of the state gives way to something profoundly human. No official tells people how to grieve. No ceremony dictates what they should feel. Each person brings their own memories, their own reasons for coming, their own farewell. For 4 days, Britain mourns together. But the lying in state is only part of the story. The greatest ceremony of all is still to come. On the final morning, the silence of Westminster Hall will give way to drums, marching soldiers, and one of the most watched funerals in modern history. The day of the state funeral. The final day begins before sunrise. Across central London, barriers are already in place. Police officers take up their positions. Military units gather in carefully organized formations. Church bells prepare to ring. World leaders begin arriving. For days, the nation has mourned. Now it gathers for one final act of farewell. The coffin remains in Westminster Hall until the appointed hour. Then, slowly, the silence is broken. Soldiers step forward. The coffin is carefully lifted from the catafalque. Every movement is deliberate. Every command has been rehearsed countless times. There is no rush, because this is not simply a funeral. It is the final public chapter of a reign. Why a gun carriage? As the procession leaves Westminster Hall, the coffin is placed upon a gun carriage drawn not by horses but by sailors of the Royal Navy. It is one of the most distinctive traditions of a British state funeral. But why sailors? The answer lies in an unexpected event more than a century ago. During the funeral of Queen Victoria in 1901, the horses assigned to pull the gun carriage became restless. According to contemporary accounts, sailors from the Royal Navy stepped forward, attached ropes to the carriage, and pulled it themselves to ensure the procession continued without interruption. The moment left such a powerful impression that it became tradition. Since then, sailors have drawn the gun carriage during state funerals for British monarchs. It is a remarkable example of how royal traditions sometimes begin not through ancient law, but because people adapted successfully in an unexpected moment. What started as necessity became ceremony, a procession watched by the world. As the procession moves through London, thousands line the streets, millions more watch across the world. Behind the gun carriage walk members of the royal family. The new king walks not only as a grieving son or daughter, but as the reigning monarch. It is perhaps the most emotionally complex moment in the entire transition. Just days earlier, they stood beside the deceased sovereign as heir. Now they walk behind the coffin as king. Two roles exist at once: private grief, public duty. Throughout history, British monarchs have often faced this contradiction. The institution does not pause for personal sorrow. The responsibilities of the crown continue, even while the royal family mourns. For those watching, the image is powerful. One reign is ending before their eyes, another has already begun. Westminster Abbey. The procession arrives at Westminster Abbey. Few buildings are more closely connected with the British monarchy. Since 1066, almost every English and later British monarch has been crowned here. Kings and queens have celebrated victories here, married here, prayed here, and now for one final time the Abbey receives its sovereign. Inside, representatives from across Britain and around the world take their seats: prime ministers, presidents, kings, queens, religious leaders, members of the armed forces, charity representatives, people whose lives reflected the service of the monarch. The funeral itself is deeply Christian, reflecting the sovereign's role as supreme governor of the Church of England. Scripture is read, prayers are offered, hymns fill the abbey. Yet beneath the religious service lies something equally significant: constitutional continuity. The funeral honors the monarch who has died, but it also quietly reminds everyone that the monarchy itself continues. The crown has passed, the state remains stable. That message has echoed through British royal funerals for generations, because throughout history, moments of uncertainty have often invited instability. Ceremony helps prevent it. The last journey to Windsor. When the service ends, the story is still not over. The coffin begins one final journey, away from the center of government, away from Parliament, away from Westminster, towards Windsor Castle. It is a symbolic transition. London is where Britain says goodbye. Windsor is where the royal family says farewell. There, another procession waits, another service, and finally, the moment when centuries of public ceremony give way to private remembrance. The monarch's final resting place is only moments away. The final farewell. The last stage of the journey is quieter. The crowds are still there. The cameras are still rolling. But something has changed. The great public ceremonies that have filled the previous days are beginning to give way to something far more personal. The procession enters the grounds of Windsor Castle. For nearly 1,000 years, this has been one of the principal homes of the British monarchy. Generation after generation of kings and queens have lived here, celebrated here, and sought refuge here during times of war and uncertainty. Now, one more monarch returns for the last time. St. George's Chapel. Waiting inside the castle walls is St. George's Chapel. Although Westminster Abbey is where British monarchs are crowned, St. George's Chapel has gradually become the preferred burial place for many members of the royal family. Its history stretches back to the 15th century, and beneath its stone floor lie generations of kings, queens, princes, and princesses. This is no ordinary chapel. It is the spiritual heart of the Order of the Garter, Britain's oldest and most senior order of chivalry. Its banners hang above the choir stalls. Its walls are filled with centuries of royal history. For the royal family, This is not simply another ceremonial building, it is home. That is why the final farewell happens here, away from Parliament, away from government, away from the Constitutional Theatre of London. Here, the monarchy becomes a family once again. The committal service. The atmosphere inside the chapel is noticeably different from Westminster Abbey, smaller, more intimate, more reflective. The committal service marks the final public act before burial. Some of the great symbols of monarchy begin to disappear. One by one, the imperial state crown, the sovereign's orb, the scepter, each is removed from the coffin. This is one of the most symbolic moments in the entire process. For days, these objects have represented royal authority. Now they are gently lifted away, not because the monarchy has ended, but because these are not personal possessions. They belong to the crown itself, and the crown has already passed to the new sovereign. The monarch who has died no longer needs the symbols of office. Their successor does. It is a quiet reminder that while one reign ends, the institution continues. Few moments capture that idea more powerfully. The royal vault. The coffin is slowly lowered into the royal vault beneath St. George's Chapel. Many people imagine this as the monarch's permanent resting place. Sometimes it is, sometimes it is not. The royal vault serves as a temporary resting place for some members of the royal family before later interment elsewhere within the chapel. That is exactly what happened following the death of Queen Elizabeth II. After the committal service, her coffin was placed temporarily in the royal vault. Later that evening, during a private family burial service, she was laid to rest in the King, George VI Memorial Chapel, alongside her father, George VI, her mother, Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, her sister Princess Margaret, and her husband, Prince Philip. Future monarchs may be buried differently depending on the wishes of the royal family and the arrangements made during their reign. The location can change, the process of continuity does not. Why these traditions endure? By now, nearly 10 days have passed since the monarch died. The country has watched processions, ceremonies, proclamations, services, moments of silence, moments of extraordinary precision. It would be easy to assume these traditions exist simply because Britain values history. But their deeper purpose is something far more practical. Every stage answers a question: who is the monarch now? Is the government still functioning? Has the crown passed peacefully? Can the public say goodbye? Has the nation remained stable? These rituals were shaped over centuries by periods when the answers to those questions were uncertain. Civil wars, disputed successions, religious conflict, political upheaval. Each crisis left its mark. Each taught Britain that moments of transition needed clarity as much as ceremony. The result is one of the most carefully choreographed constitutional successions in the world. And as the chapel doors finally close, only one chapter remains. Not the burial. That has already happened. The legacy. Because long after the ceremonies end and the crowds go home, one question still remains. Why do these ancient traditions continue to matter in the 21st century? More than a funeral. The funeral is over. The processions have ended. The flags will eventually return to full height. The crowds outside the palaces begin to disappear. Slowly, Britain returns to everyday life. But something fundamental has changed. The reign that shaped one chapter of British history has ended. Another has already begun. Perhaps that is the most remarkable feature of the British monarchy. It manages to present two seemingly opposite ideas at exactly the same time. It allows a nation to mourn, while insisting that government never stops. It honors the life of one monarch, while quietly affirming the authority of the next. That balance between grief and continuity has been refined over centuries. It did not emerge by accident. It was built through moments when succession went terribly wrong, when the system failed. Britain's smooth succession today is the result of lessons learned through painful experience. When Edward the Confessor died without an heir in 1066, rival claimants fought for the throne, culminating in the Battle of Hastings and the Norman Conquest. Centuries later, the Wars of the Roses plunged England into decades of conflict as rival royal houses contested the crown. In 1649, the execution of Charles I led to the temporary abolition of the monarchy altogether. Then, in 1688, the Glorious Revolution redefined the relationship between the sovereign and Parliament, laying the foundations of the modern constitutional monarchy. Each crisis left behind a lesson. Never leave uncertainty around succession. Never allow confusion over who governs. Never let the machinery of state pause because one reign has ended. The ceremonies seen today are therefore far more than tradition. They are centuries of constitutional experience made visible. Why the crown never waits. There is a reason the first words of this story were not about mourning. They were about continuity. From the instant the monarch dies, Britain already has a new sovereign. Before the public hears the news, the crown has passed. Before the funeral is planned, the crown has passed. Before the first flowers appear outside Buckingham Palace, the crown has passed. That single principle explains almost everything that follows. The proclamations, the flags, the ceremonies, the military processions, even the funeral itself. They are not designed to create a monarch. They are designed to reassure a nation that the monarchy continues without interruption. The crown never waits, a tradition that looks to the future. When Queen Elizabeth II died in 2022, billions of people watched these traditions unfold. For many, it was the first time they had ever witnessed the death of a British monarch. Yet almost every step they observed had been shaped by generations, long before her reign. Future monarchs may be mourned differently in some respects. Technology will change, media will change, public expectations will continue to evolve. Even the operational plans prepared in advance will differ from one sovereign to another. But the central purpose is unlikely to change: to guide the nation through one of its most significant constitutional moments with clarity, dignity, and continuity. Because the death of a monarch is not only the end of a life, it is the peaceful transfer of an institution that has endured for centuries. Which tradition surprised you the most? The fact that the new monarch takes the throne instantly, or the extraordinary level of planning that follows the monarch's death? Do you think these centuries-old ceremonies still strengthen the monarchy today, or have they become more symbolic than constitutional? History rarely leaves us with simple answers, and moments like these reveal just how closely tradition and government remain connected. I would genuinely love to hear your thoughts in the comments. As one reign quietly becomes another, we're reminded that every royal family has faced moments when power, grief, and uncertainty collided. Another remarkable royal story is already waiting for you on screen.